Well, good morning again, everyone. It is so great to see you all out there greeting one another and joining us, coming through the snow to join us on this second Sunday of Advent. I'm feeling a little cramped. I can't wander as much this week because we've got Advent candles over here and communion table over here, but all right, I'll do my best not to knock anything over. My name is Pastor Ian Boley, and on behalf of myself and Pastor Bob Miller, it's a pleasure to be worshiping with you. Thanks again for joining us, whether you're here in person or watching from afar. And welcome to our little ones in the back as well, as we're doing Advent crafts in the back of our worship space all month. Today is the second Sunday of Advent, and we have just lit the candle of peace. Thanks to the Cross family for that. Last week, we lit the candle of hope, and we continue our anticipation of the arrival of the Christ child in the world once more, as God reveals God's self in creation, as God reveals what has always been and what always will be through Christ. Now, during Advent, as we've said, we're sharing in a series about sacred Christmas traditions. We talked about decorating last week. Pastor Bob talked about this long and hope-filled tradition of decorating. And this week, we're looking at another tradition, and that is the holy practice of gathering together with our loved ones. Now, Advent and Christmas is perhaps the time of year that we're most intentional about gathering together with our loved ones. Now, we gather with different groups of people in all sorts of sacred ways all the time. We gather at family functions, we gather with groups of friends, we gather for various meals around the table. We gather right here in church on Sunday mornings. But this gathering that we do, it takes on a special significance at certain times, right? Days like Easter, Thanksgiving, or even leisure days like the 4th of July, Memorial Day, Labor Day. Birthdays, anniversaries, and of course, around Christmas time. December, it's often the busiest month of the year. Our calendars get filled up with parties, dinners, Advent tea celebrations, church services, and finally, Christmas and New Year's celebrations. So what is it that makes these gatherings so sacred? Aside from the obvious answer that we are celebrating the presence of Christ in the world, why are these gatherings so important, so traditional, so historic, so human? What's happening when this happens? It's something that we've done together as Christians since the beginning of the Christian movement, since the time of Jesus. But even more than that, it is something that people have been doing since the beginning of time. People have always gathered together. Well, there are a couple of simple theories. I'll share just one little theory that goes into this. I've got a couple of examples to help share that theory. So we're gonna do some reading today. We are going to talk about a couple of children's books, specifically some children's fantasy books that honor this long tradition of gathering together at both sacred and non-sacred times. So the first example for this theory that I've got is from a book series called Redwall. Can you see the image up there? Okay, so that's the cover of the first book. Does anyone know these books by any chance? Anyone ever heard of? Okay, Dave Spieth is familiar with Redwall. Very good. He's probably got a Redwall t-shirt somewhere at home, right? Cool. So this is a series, a book series from the late 80s and 90s. It's by a British author named Brian Jacques. There are some books in the 2000s as well, but it was really big and popular in the 80s and 90s. It's a children's fantasy in the style of like The Chronicles of Narnia or The Secret of NIMH or Watership Down or something like that. It's about mice and other woodland creatures living together in and around a place called Redwall Abbey. It's about the adventures and the trials they go through, the challenges and the villains they face, etc. And one of the ongoing themes in these books is the theme of gathering together. So there's just a little bit of artwork. You get a feel for the style of these books, right? What's going on in these books. There are kids in the back. I don't know, what animals can we see here? We've got mice. We've got a badger. Can you see the mole? Anyone pick out the mole in there? Yeah. So these characters are always sharing meals, having tea, eating delicious sounding food, and cooking and celebrating together. There's another little piece of artwork there based on it. They celebrate in large groups and in small groups. They celebrate at different times of the year. And another major feature of these books is how the author describes the food they eat together. So I'm going to share a brief passage. Like I said, we're going to do some reading today. Just a brief passage from this first book. Now, I can't see it back there. You can see it up here. It's 2 slides. Just indulge me, all right? Just indulge me for 2 slides here. Brother Alf remarked that Friar Hugo had excelled himself, as course after course was brought to the table. Tender freshwater shrimp, garnished with cream and rose leaves, deviled barley pearls in acorn puree, apple and carrot chews, marinated cabbage stalks steeped in creamed white turnip with nutmeg. You'll notice it's all vegetables they're talking about here. But a chorus of oohs and ahs greeted the arrival of 6 mice pushing a big trolley. It was the grayling. Wreaths of aromatic steam drifted around cavern hole. The fish had been baked to perfection. Friar Hugo entered with a slight swagger added to his ungainly waddle. He swept off his chef's cap with his tail and announced in a somewhat pompous squeak, "My Lord Abbot, honored guests from Mossflower area, and members of the Abbey, I wish to present my pièce de résistance, grayling à la red wall." And here's the second half of this passage here. Polite but eager applause rippled around as Hugo sliced the fish and placed the first steaming portion onto a platter. With suitable dignity, he presented it to the abbot, who thanked him graciously. All eyes were on Father Abbot. He took a dainty fork loaded precariously with steaming fish. Carefully, he transferred it from plate to mouth. Chewing delicately, he turned his eyes upwards and then closed them, whiskers a twitch, jaws working steadily, munching away, his tail curled up, holding a napkin which neatly wiped his mouth. The abbot's eyes reopened. He beamed like the sun on midsummer morn. "Quite wonderful, perfectly exquisite. Friar Hugo, you are truly my champion chef. Please serve our guests your masterwork." Any further speech was drowned by hearty cheers. So perhaps you've guessed by now that the theory that I have in mind is about food. It has to do with food. It's not just that we are gathering. It is, one, that we are gathering with our friends and loved ones. We are connecting with the people that matter most. And also, it's what we are gathering to do, to be nourished, to celebrate life, to eat, drink, and be merry, to practice gratitude, and to give thanks for all of the blessings that we share. All right, so I've got one more literary example today, and then we'll be done. It's kind of similar to the last one, and I expect that more of you may have read this one than will have read the last one. This one's also 2 slides. Indulge me. If you can't read it, don't worry, I'll read it. Just as the frying pan was hissing nicely, Peter and Mr. Beaver came in with the fish, which Mr. Beaver had already opened with his knife and cleaned out in the open air. You can think how good the new-caught fish smelled while they were frying it, and how the hungry children longed for it to be done, and how very much hungrier still they had become before Mr. Beaver said, "Now we're nearly ready." Susan drained the potatoes and put them all back in an empty pot to dry on the side of the range, while Lucy was helping Mrs. Beaver to dish up the trout, so that in a very few minutes everyone was drawing up their stools and preparing to enjoy themselves. And here's the second half of this passage. There was a jug of creamy milk for the children and a great big lump of deep yellow butter in the middle of the table, from which everyone took as much as they wanted to go with their potatoes. And all the children thought, and I agree with them, that there's nothing to beat good freshwater fish if you eat it when it has been alive half an hour ago and has come out of the pan half a minute ago. And when they had finished the fish, Mrs. Beaver brought unexpectedly out of the oven a great and gloriously sticky marmalade roll, steaming hot, and at the same time moved the kettle onto the fire, so that when they had finished the marmalade roll, the tea was made and ready to be poured out. And when each person had got his or her cup of tea, each person shoved back his or her stool so as to be able to lean against the wall and gave a long sigh of contentment. So, as you may have known or guessed, that passage, of course, is from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. So this is a common theme throughout children's literature, throughout fantasy literature, this focus, this idea of gathering together to share meals, to share special times, to find and seek safety and contentment, to give thanks for what we have. Now, in these fantasy stories, of course, there's some kind of other threat that comes later, and so the focus is also about protecting what we have to protect, protecting the Shire, right, or protecting Narnia, or protecting Redwall, or something like that. But it's all about giving thanks for the blessings that we enjoy together. Now, you might be, to transition to the gospel a little bit, you might be asking yourself, what's up with all the fish references? Well, I've got another theory. So Brian Jacques and C.S. Lewis, they were both Christian authors. Jacques was a Roman Catholic, just like J.R.R. Tolkien was, and C.S. Lewis was a member of the Anglican Church. Both writers expressed their Christian faith through their books, albeit in different ways and with different storytelling devices. So where do you think they might have gotten this idea for their characters to all eat fish together? Who could have possibly inspired them to put that into their stories? Well, that's just another theory that I've got. The Bible, the gospel in particular, they're full of meaningful passages where Jesus and his followers are gathering together and giving thanks and dining together. And of course, what's usually the meal of choice? It's fish. Jesus feeding the 5,000, Jesus feeding the 4,000, Jesus making the disciples into fishers of people, Jesus having them cast their nets over the other side of the boat to demonstrate the abundance of God's creation, Jesus roasting fish over an open fire as he talks with Peter in the closing passages of the Gospel of John. The examples are everywhere. So, are you hungry yet? You're going to be thinking about baked fish for the rest of the day, maybe? In this gospel tradition, in our tradition, in the church, sharing a meal together, in their case, usually bread and fish of some kind, it's an ongoing symbol for the eternal goodness of God, for the gifts that God gives us. And Jesus makes it clear that everyone is welcome at his table. He repeatedly eats with sinners and outcasts from all walks of life. He is always eating in new ways with new people, regardless of what the rules of the time said he should do. Because Jesus saw something sacred, not just in the practice of gathering, and not just in the practice of sharing a meal together, but Jesus saw something sacred in the people that he was gathering with, in everybody that was in the room, the adults, the children, the parents, the grandparents. Everyone who was there is bringing something sacred to the table. Jesus knew that God is in everything, that he, the Christ, was in everything and is in everyone. And the Apostle Paul understood this. It was a major theme of his ministry. Brian Jacques understood it. Tolkien understood it. C.S. Lewis understood it. When we gather together with someone over a sacred celebration, a Christmas dinner, a church service, a special meal, we are acknowledging that God has created and given all, and that Christ is in every morsel, every bite of fish, every person or mouse or child or woodland creature that is sitting at the table. And in fact, nearly all of Jesus' healing acts happen shortly before or after he has shared a meal with someone. And of course, at the end of his ministry, Jesus shares one final meal with his disciples, a meal which we remember today in the form of Holy Communion. Where 2 or 3 are gathered, there shall I be. Jesus comes to feed the hungry, to dine with us, to share the table with us, to show us how to gather together on every occasion, not just for Christmas dinner, but every time we wish to give thanks and share the blessings of peace. And at the table of Jesus, as we all know, there are always plenty of leftovers too. So with all that, we're just going to conclude today with our reading from Isaiah, short reading from Isaiah. This is still the season of Advent, the season of the anticipated arrival of Christ in the world. And we're not quite done remembering our traditions yet. Isaiah chapter 11, a shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots a branch will bear fruit. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of might, the Spirit of the knowledge and fear of the Lord. And he will delight in the fear of the Lord. He will not judge by what he sees with his eyes or decide by what he hears with his ears. But with righteousness he will judge the needy. With justice he will give decisions for the poor of the earth. He will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth. With the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Righteousness will be his belt, and faithfulness the sash around his waist. The wolf will live with the lamb. The leopard will lie down with the goat, the calf and the lion and the yearling together, and a little child will lead them. The cow will feed with the bear, and their young will lie down together. And the lion will eat straw like the ox. The infant will play near the cobra's den, and the young child will put its hand into the viper's nest. They will neither harm nor destroy on all my holy mountain. For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. In that day, the root of Jesse will stand as a banner for the peoples. The nations will rally to him, and his resting place will be glorious. It's a great promise found in the book of Isaiah. Christ will be a gathering place and a resting place for all. The Spirit that connects us with each other as we continue to gather in his name and share the peace of Christ this Christmas and every Christmas from now on. Thanks be to God, and amen.